Now, a couple of weeks ago, I got a sneak peek and an early look at some of the offerings from Lenovo at CES 2023, right here in Las Vegas, actually. And I got a chance to look at what the ThinkBook line was going to offer here for 2023, one of which was the ThinkBook Plus Twist, which of course is a throwback in a lot of ways to those tablet PCs of yesteryear. We're going to get into it when I do get a review unit into the studio. But Lenovo sent over another interesting offering from the ThinkBook line. Yes, it's the ThinkBook Plus Gen 3. This is the one with that 8-inch secondary display. It's got a beautiful 3K widescreen display with a 21:10 aspect ratio. And it's a pretty interesting device to say the least. We're going to get into whether or not these dual screen madness that they've incorporated here is actually worth the money. Hey everybody, it's Andrew, and this is my review of the Lenovo ThinkBook Plus Gen 3, the dual screen madness, coming up. Now, before we get to the unit itself, I just want to let everyone know, in the interest of transparency and full disclosure, I'm not being paid by Lenovo. I'm not being sponsored by Lenovo. All the opinions you're about to hear are my own. Lenovo is not getting copy approval. They're seeing this video for the first time, just like you. Now, this unit is on loan from Lenovo, and once this review is done, I'll be sending it back. Pricing starts at $1194.74 over at Lenovo's website. For those interested, I'll leave a link in the description below for more information and where you can buy one. Now, Lenovo sent this over. This is the ThinkBook Plus Gen 3, and it has a dual screen on this. We'll talk about that in a moment. It has a main screen and, of course, a secondary display we'll get into. But without further ado, let's find out what you get inside the box. So far, looking like it's going to be pretty nice packaging. Let's take this out. So it looks like it's some pretty nice packaging here. And you can see here the secondary display. Here you can see it. This has got the Core i7-12700H. It has a 17.3-inch 3K main display, secondary 8-inch HD display. We'll get into that. 4-cell battery, Windows 11 Pro, and it comes in this storm gray color. And it's a wide aspect ratio. I think it's 21:10. So it's a widescreen aspect ratio. You get some documentation along with some warranty information. And you get your power charger here. It's 100 watts. It's pretty compact for 100 watts. And it is USB-C. So you're looking at a 100-watt USB Type-C charger. So looking pretty good. And this is the power cord right there. All right. Wow, so this is really wide screen. So you can see it's a very wide notebook. It's pretty thin considering you have a 17-inch main display. This is the storm gray finish. It has the typical ThinkBook two-tone on it. A little bit lighter here than over here, but very gorgeous looking. I like the way this feels. All right, let's check out the port selection. On the left side, you get a 3.5 millimeter microphone headphone combo jack and a USB-C 3.2 Gen 2 port. That is not Thunderbolt on that port. There's nothing on the right side. On the back, there is an HDMI port, two USB-A 3.2 Gen 1 ports, and a USB Type-C Thunderbolt 4 port that is full function, supporting data, charge, and display out. Notably missing, there's no SD card reader, especially if you can do creative work. That would have been a nice inclusion. I would say overall a decent port selection. Now, when it comes to user upgradeability, you'll notice that it does have a replaceable SSD. You can upgrade it as the user. And as you can see from these reads and writes, these are Gen 4 speeds, good speeds here that we'd like to see here in 2023. So very good in that regard. Now, as far as the RAM, that is soldered into the motherboard, not upgradable by the user, but they are using DDR5 RAM, and that is always good to see. And it is running in dual channel mode. Now, my review unit has 16 gigabytes of LP DDR5 RAM running at 2400 megahertz, and as I mentioned, dual channel in terms of that RAM. Now this has Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.2, and that is also soldered into the motherboard, so you won't be able to change it later on. But as far as the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth, both working flawlessly. Let's see if we can open it up with one finger. You can, and the first thing you're greeted by is this diagram of the privacy cover on there, the little different things you need to know about it, the built-in pen which is on the back. So let's take a look at that. There's the secondary display. So the pen will be located on the back here, clicks right out, and there's the pen, and it says it's the Lenovo integrated pen WG14, and that stores and charges, I guess, in the back. Clicks right in, boom, there you go. So very interesting. Now I'm left-handed, so using this with my right hand, of course, will be a little bit of a disadvantage, but especially with the pen, but we'll talk about that in a moment. Iris Xe graphics, it's showing Core i7 here, 12700H, 12th gen, as we know, and nice keyboard. So they had to make room for this 8-inch display, so keyboard's over to the left here, and very typical ThinkBook style keyboard with the smile-shaped keys. We know this from the iPad line, the Yoga line, of course the ThinkBook line. We got your power button, which also doubles as a fingerprint scanner over there. Shutter button on the camera right there, and it looks like it's a matte display. Again, 21:10 aspect ratio, widescreen, so that should be pretty interesting. And let's turn it on. Let's see what we get here. Looks like there is some juice. So pretty interesting. Now, the build quality looks like it's first rate. I can't wait to see what the secondary display is going to look like in a moment. And the screen goes back almost 180 degrees, as you see here. So really nice hinges, very little screen wobble on the hinges, pretty good. So that means you'll get a pretty good viewing angle each and every time, and I like that. Now, when it comes to the keyboard, I thought the key travel was pretty decent, although a little bit on the shallow side, but it did have pretty good feedback overall, and it was comfortable for typing in extended periods of time, so that's been pretty good. It does have a multi-stage backlight that worked well. Now, as far as the precision touchpad, I thought it was very good in terms of scrolling, gestures, everything very responsive, good clickiness to it, very good overall. Okay, let's talk about the two displays. The main display, of course, is a 17.3-inch 3K display with a resolution of 3072 by 1440. And for those wondering, yes, that is a 21:10 aspect ratio, a wide aspect ratio. So if you're doing things like spreadsheets and have documents that are wide, you'll see a lot more of the columns and so forth. So there's a benefit to that. But of course, it is very wide. So if you're watching content not optimized for widescreen, you will have black bars on the sides of the picture, but that's just something to keep in mind. But it is a really nice sharp display. It also has a high refresh rate of 120 hertz. It is a 400 nit display. It's very bright. We'll get into that in a moment. And it has pretty good coverage of the color gamut, and it is color accurate. It is also a Dolby Vision HDR display. And if you're a content creator, you're going to love this display. You're looking at 100% sRGB, 90% Adobe RGB, 97% of the DCI-P3 wide color gamut, and 85% NTSC. So if you're doing Lightroom, Photoshop, video editing, it's an excellent panel. It's also a bright panel at 425 nits. That's above the 400 claimed nits from Lenovo. Black levels are 0.24, which is excellent, good white point, and really great contrast, 1340:1. The bottom line is this is an excellent panel, especially if you're doing creative work. And as far as that secondary display is concerned, you're looking at an 8-inch display with a resolution of 800 by 1280. It's an IPS touch display with a 60 hertz refresh rate. Now, it is a bright display, getting as bright as 390 nits in my measurements. Black level 0.43, white point 7400K, contrast 720:1, but at an 8-inch display, it's still pretty good. Delta E 2.87, so not the most color accurate. Like to see that below too. And the coverage of the color gamut, you're looking at 80% sRGB, 63% Adobe RGB, 63% of the DCI-P3 wide color gamut, and 59% NTSC. Not the best numbers when it comes to creative work, but you'll do most of that on that main display, which does a great job on those tasks. But overall, pretty nice 8-inch display here. Really good as a secondary monitor, that's for sure. And the other thing is I didn't notice any PWM or screen flickering on either the main display or this secondary display.
All right, so this is the camera on the ThinkBook Plus Gen 3 here for 2023. It actually was announced 2022. I just finally got it here from Lenovo here in January 2023. And what we have here is a full HD webcam. Yeah, shooting 1080p video. It's an IR camera. That means you can log in with face recognition with Windows Hello. It has auto exposure. You can change the brightness. There's a lot of controls in the Lenovo Vantage app. And then, of course, you have a fingerprint scanner. The power button doubles as that fingerprint scanner. Setup was easy and worked well. So pretty good in terms of the video quality. What do you think about the internal mics as far as noise cancellation? How does it sound? Let me know in that comment section below.
And as far as the pen is concerned, it's a pretty thin pen. We've seen it before from Lenovo's Yoga line, but it does store and charge in the rear of the device on the right side. So again, if you're left-handed, a little bit of a disadvantage there, but not a huge deal. It clicks into place. You won't lose it, so it's really secure as well. Great for taking notes, sketching out diagrams, doing digital artwork. It's there. Now, of course, it doesn't work on that main display. It works on the 8-inch secondary display only. Now, also the main display is a touch display. You can use your finger to navigate. Again, the pen doesn't work on that. Okay, let's talk about performance, and this has the Core i7-12700H that has 14 cores, that's 6 performance cores and 8 efficiency cores. It's a 45-watt CPU, and as you can see from these benchmarks, very good performance here. Certainly for everyday tasks, Microsoft Office, email, web browsing, it all worked well. You're seeing good single-core and excellent multi-core scores here, and I am very impressed with this, of course. But the one thing you'll have to notice is the fact that the graphics are integrated Iris Xe graphics. There is no option for a discrete GPU, and that certainly hinders some of the performance. And when it comes to gaming, this is where you're going to see the downside of the Xe graphics. Now, of course, you can lower some of the settings on some of the titles and you will get some playable frame rates, but playing AAA titles on their high settings, just not in the card. So keep that in mind. Now, it does have a Thunderbolt 4 port, so you can add an external GPU for more graphics horsepower. And when it comes to the thermals, I think they did a pretty good job, never getting overly hot in terms of the surface temperatures when under heavy load. But you will notice the fan noise kick in, although it never got above 47, 48 decibels. Not too bad, but it is noticeable under heavy load. When you're in the other modes, when it's not really being pushed to the limit, really kicks in very intermittently and pretty quiet overall. So pretty decent job when it comes to the thermals. The ThinkBook Plus Gen 3 has a 70-watt-hour battery. Now, I would say it has average battery life. Now, I ran 3 different tests. I did an idle test without the wireless on, minimum brightness. It did 8 hours and 5 minutes. On my Wi-Fi web surfing test, you're looking at 5 hours and 20 minutes. And under maximum load, everything in terms of maximum brightness and so forth, you're looking at just under an hour. So I would say overall average battery life on this laptop. Now, when it comes to charging, it takes between 1 and 1.5 hours to give you a full charge, and it does support rapid charge for those wondering. And that is with the supplied 100-watt USB Type-C charging adapter. Now, when it comes to audio, you're looking at 2 2-watt Harman Kardon stereo speakers and their Dolby Atmos speakers, so it'll help with the spatial audio. And it was actually pretty decent, getting pretty good volume in terms of filling up a room rather nicely. A little bit of bass there, and it does have pretty good mids. I would say overall pretty good in terms of the audio. Now, it does have a 3.5 millimeter microphone headphone combo jack, so if you want even an enhanced audio experience, use wired headphones. And of course, you could always use a good pair of Bluetooth headphones as well. Okay, let's bring it all home. What do I think about the Lenovo ThinkBook Plus Gen 3? This is a very interesting device, especially if you're into multitasking, especially into creative work, and you need a secondary display to help with Photoshop or things of that nature, or if you just like to watch movies or surf the internet or check out Twitter on that secondary display while you're doing work on your main display. There's a lot of use case scenarios. It's very interesting, although it is on the right side. So if you are left-handed like me, like 10% of the population is, then you're in a little bit of a disadvantage, especially if you want to use the pen, which is all located on the right side. Now, having said that, for the most part, it is a pretty interesting implementation here. Really excellent 21:10 3K main display. It really is a nice IPS display. Its coverage of the color gamut is excellent. It's color accurate, and it really is a sharp display. The 8-inch secondary display certainly gets bright enough, and it is definitely sharp enough for what you need it to do.
The cool surface temperatures under heavy load is a real plus here. Thunderbolt 4 gives you that versatility in terms of connectivity. Fast PCIe Gen 4 SSD speeds here. And it's pretty light for its size and pretty thin for its size. And it has that integrated stylus for those that want to take notes, sketch out diagrams, or just do some digital artwork. It's there. The negatives here, I would say that's pretty average battery life, and there's no discrete GPU option, especially when you're pairing it with this H series processor. It's a pretty powerful processor. Would have been nice to have a more powerful GPU option. You have to stick with the integrated Iris Xe graphics, which, as you know, is getting a little bit long in the tooth. But as far as dual screen laptops go, this might be the best implementation so far, and it's a pretty interesting implementation at that. So if you're in the market for a multitasking laptop, this just might be the ticket for you.
So what do you think about the ThinkBook Plus Gen 3? And it's a pretty interesting device. Now, I am left-handed, as I said in the video, so using the pen on that secondary display on the right side, a little bit inconvenient, but I definitely like having that secondary display for watching Netflix or maybe even surfing through Twitter or through web browsing while I'm getting work done on that main display. Now, speaking of that main display, it's a 3K display with a pretty interesting wide aspect ratio of 21:10. It's a high-res display, and it is really gorgeous. It's also a touchscreen display, but the pen doesn't work on that main display. It only works on that secondary 8-inch display. And that secondary 8-inch display is also a matte display, so both do not have any problems with glare reflection, and that's especially good for that secondary display since you are looking down at it and the lighting would come directly at it. So I didn't get any unnecessary glare or reflections that you would get in a glossy display. So it was a good choice done there by Lenovo. Now, battery life is not stellar on this, as I mentioned, and it only has integrated Xe graphics. I kind of wish they had a discrete graphics option. You don't get it here, but they do give you a nice, healthy, powerful CPU, the Core i7-12700H, a 45-watt CPU. We've seen it before, and the numbers show exactly how this can perform. And I think for certainly everyday use, Microsoft Office, email, web browsing, some 1080p, and some even 4K light video editing, you can get it done with this, although again, I would like to have had the option for a discrete GPU. You don't get it here. But it is a very interesting laptop, especially with the interplay between that main 3K widescreen display and that secondary 8-inch display. Very interesting, and a lot of use case scenarios that I'm probably not even thinking of that you might find very interesting and useful. But I'm curious to know what you think. Let me know in that comment section below. So please hit the like button, please subscribe, please share this video. Don't forget to leave a comment in that comment section below. Let me know how I'm doing. Let me know if there's a device or something out there you think I should review. I'll do my best to try to make that happen. Don't forget to check me out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course my website, amdtechreviews.com. So until next time, this is Andrew from AMD Tech. See ya.